Okay, the Mother Earth technique. So why I do this technique? It's to take away the association of somebody who's had a traumatic experience or holds trauma around their relationship with their own mother. And I have a technique where I change their mind, linking their mother, and instead change it to Mother Earth, who is Mother Earth, is supportive, is nurturing, is always gives you what you need. You're able to, supports you with sunshine and nutrients and food and water and a supportive environment for people who have not had that growing up. Now, how our brains work, one of the most basic things you learn when you study neurology is neural pathways. So our brains work on a series of links. This equals this equals this. So those links are most obvious with things like you smell lavender, you think of your grandmother's lavender drawer, and you think, wow, my grandma really loved me. So people know that it works with smells. You might smell roses and remember a garden, or you might smell the beach and remember a childhood holiday. Well, the same thing happens in the negative effects as well. So a person who's been abused, I know for me, in 2013, I was on holiday and a stranger was in a rage and drunk, and he lunged at my throat with a crazy look in his eyes, and it triggered a childhood trauma when somebody else held my throat down when I was a toddler, held me down by the throat underwater and tried to drown me. And it was similar enough that it triggered that exact memory of somebody trying to drown me as a toddler. And her rage and her screaming and the crazy look in the eyes was exactly the same. So that's why our brains work on links. But if you can break the pattern, so it's called a pattern interrupt. If you can break the pattern, your brain then learns a new pathway out to get the light at the end of the tunnel. So pattern interrupts, most of us have heard of them in terms of NLP. Those who have never done NLP studies will know about a pattern interrupt, even if they don't know the name. An example would be if you've got a screaming toddler and they're upset because you cut their sandwiches wrong and they're like throwing a little tantrum, and you say to them, look, there's Santa outside, Santa's watching you. The 2-year-old will like, what? And their brain goes out of the loop of hysteria and they start to go in their brain. The frontal lobe has to reactivate to start looking and making connections, and so it takes them out of the loop. I do it with someone I know who's abusive, and I'll do it by saying, are you okay? Because what it'll do, it'll take them out of screaming, and I'll say, are you okay? And they'll go, their brain has to search for, are they okay? Well, clearly they're not, because they're screaming how much they hate everyone. Clearly they're not okay, but it breaks the hysterical cycle in their behaviour. So that's an NLP technique. NLP is strategies. NLP works really well with changing patterns of behaviour. It doesn't always deal with underlying causes, but changing patterns of behaviour can be life-changing because it can change things that seem self-destructive. It can certainly change your beliefs around things, and it can be really reinforcing and positive to know that you have a coping strategy when before you just had a reactive way to behave. So I'm not shitting on NLP in any way. I'm saying that there are some fantastic strategies which are a great first step when you don't know how to cope in a situation. So, and look, where do you start? So back to Mother Earth. Back to Mother Earth. So the Mother Earth technique, there's a whole lot of reasons it works, and I could go on for hours about that. But realistically, the reason it works isn't you don't have to know that for it to work. And that's the beautiful thing about doing brain training work or brain reframing work. So when clients are really stuck, I'll often get them to walk through, like timeline or spatial dynamics. I'll get them to walk into different spaces in the room so that their body has a different experience in each space. And it's to do with spatial dynamics, is to do with how and where the brain stores energy, stores memories. You also see this with little old ladies. When they walk into one room, they can't remember, and in the other room, they'll go, all right, I need to go and get the scissors. They walk into the other room and they can't remember. There's a reason to do with how our brains are wired, to do with spatial dynamics as to why that happens. So I feel like I need to do one talk on the technique and then a whole other talk on the science of it, rather than try and integrate them into one. So, Mother Earth technique. Suffice to say that if you put down, just link it, if you want to do this for yourself, the easiest way might be to put, say, 5 pieces of paper on the floor, put on one of them Mother, and put on the other one Mother Earth, and put in 3 or a couple of ones of steps in the middle. Work out in the room, in your brain, where is the space in the room that represents Mother Earth. And if there's any symbology or anything, it might be a rock or something that grounds you. It might be a crystal. It might be a piece of grass that you want to use to symbolize Mother Earth. And then start the timeline technique by standing on the square that is to do with Mother, if that's your trauma. But you can use this technique for other traumas as well. So standing on the spot with Mother, look into what is the belief that you're ready to let go of, that's no longer serving you. And an example might be, my mother didn't love me, therefore I'm unlovable. That'd be a good one to change if that's your belief. So then step on to the next one. Write it on there or write it down. Step on to the next one and go, okay, so is this working for me? That would be a good place to go to next. Is this working for me? And go, okay, I'm unlovable isn't working for me because it means I'm choosing situations where I'm picking people who reinforce that pain, or I'm sabotaging healthy relationships because it doesn't fit my painful narrative. So the next thing to start to break that neural pathway that's causing sabotaging belief is to start to question the beliefs consciously, right? And then so look at that and notice how it feels different in your body, because there's going to be less adrenaline, because you're going to be having a different experience in the space of questioning it. And then moving on to the third piece of paper, go, okay, when are the experiences, and step into the experiences where you were loved and you were lovable. And then feel those. Close your eyes. Closing your eyes accesses a different part of your brain. So closing your eyes, just feel into what it's like to feel lovable. What were the signs? What were the clues? Who were the people that made you feel lovable? Was it because they were kind and they gave love to everyone? How can you recognize those people when they show up in your life? And just stay longer in that one and start to feel where your body relaxes, feel where it feels good, feel the parts of your body that are still tense. And notice, is it safe now to let go of that? So start to breathe and let go. Start to have a different experience in your body, which will start to rewire your brain around your beliefs around love and where you hold it in your body. Start to rewire your cellular memory and then start to look at it. Now, when you're ready, open your eyes and step on to number 4. And I want you to go into that and go into, who does this actually belong to? So this pain, and go, is it even mine? So with number 4, this is going, I know I've now had a different experience as I've had. Step 1 was the original pain, the source of the problem. Step 2 was, starting to question it, starting to see whether that was working, whether that was helping me. and acknowledging that the intention of that belief was to protect me from pain, but is there a better way? Step 3 was actually saying, hang on, they're starting to get reframing, starting to say, okay, what are the ways in which I am loved? What is the ways in which I am supported? And then moving on to step 4, who does this belong to? And so ask yourself, is this mine? Is this a family belief? Is this something someone said to me? And just run through, is it mine or someone else's? And then just trust, just go with it, someone else's. Okay, so is it someone else's? Is it a family member, or is it somebody else said it to me? And just go through, almost like 20 questions. Just go through, and you might just be, is it something I heard? And then go, okay, is its intention to protect me? Usually it is. And then go, if I could choose, what would I replace it with? And then your brain is starting to look for new connections, new neural pathways. So instead of being stuck in the dark with, I'm not loved, I'm not supported, your brain is now looking for light at the end of the tunnel. What would I like to replace it with? How can love show up in my life? So it might be a stranger who bought you a coffee. It might be, wow, I realized that a guy I went to uni with was in love with me years ago, and, we were friends and did yoga together, and I never realized. And love was right there under my nose, and I didn't see it because it didn't fit my narrative, etc., etc. So start to look at different ways that you can find out how you can change it, how you can heal it, who is safe, what are the resources I could use, what are the books, who are the people who feel lovable that I could ask them for solutions. Don't ask people who don't know how to heal this. Ask people who are working on this or who have the answers you're looking for. So then immerse yourself in that. Is it possible? Because we get the answers we go looking for. If you say to your brain, hey brain, why am I so unlovable? Your brain will find supporting arguments to support that belief system, like legs on a table. If you say to your brain, how can I go and find love? How can I find someone who really loves me? How can I heal this? Your brain will start looking for that. However, your unconscious beliefs might still hiccup you, so maybe just tweak it again. Okay, where in my life have I been lovable? So start to do things that break down the old beliefs as well. That's just as important. Where in my life is that not true? And start to see that these old beliefs that are creating sabotage behavior aren't absolute truths. They may well have been what showed up in your life, but they're not absolute truths. And maybe your grandmother, who has this belief that it's not safe and everyone hates me, maybe you had a grandma and it was true for her because she lived in a war zone. And maybe that was true and maybe it wasn't safe. And so you've still got this cellular memory because your cells were in your mother's uterus, in your grandmother's body when your mother was an embryo. So your cells had that belief system, and we know from the studies and the work of Bruce Lipton that human cells remember trauma for 14 generations. And we know with heart transplants that the recipient has the cellular memories from the life that the cells that are put into their body. They wake up with different allergies, different coloured eyes, and different memories. So cellular trauma is a really big deal, and there's no way for you to access that and those belief systems a lot of the time, but it's a part of our programming that's running us. And so we're reacting to trauma that may have been experienced by a previous generation. And so how can you solve a problem if you're not even aware of it? It'd be like if I ran up to a stranger and I said, what's the answer to the math problem? And I hadn't told you the math problem, but I told your grandma 50 years earlier. How could you solve that math problem? So it's kind of the same thing with cellular memory. Now finally, when you're ready, step on to number 5 and have that be Mother Earth. And when you do, I want you to imagine that your feet, because our brains tell stories, they're very powerful. Imagine that your feet go down through Mother Earth energy, go down all the way like roots from your feet going down into the ground, down to where the nourishment is, down to where the nurturing is, through the parent relationship that, for whatever reason, did not give you the particular nurturing or support that you believe you needed. Right through all of that, right through your family, down, 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 all the way into the soil where you can draw up the nutrients you need. Then reaching out your arms, with your eyes still closed, reach out your arms and soak up the nutrients from the rain and the sun and the wind and the energy and everything from the earth. And realize that these arms are branches that give shadow and comfort to other people, that you can produce fruit, which is the kindness you pay forward, that nurtures and supports other people. And you can also give away with non-attachment kindness. You can love it forward when you are replenished yourself. And I want you to realize that unlike a person who has little left to give of themselves, I see a lot of rescuers give kindness, give love, give money, like they're a battery that runs until they run out and then tries to recharge. And so often, abuse survivors will go back to the same people who hurt them and try and get love and replenishment and nurturing from the same people who never gave them love the first time around. Now, when you put it that bluntly, we can see how crazy it is, yet part of us wants so badly to be loved by our family that we'll do it without questioning it. So, just standing on that piece of paper that represents Mother Earth, I want you to acknowledge that there is love and support out there for you, and look down with your roots or look around you and just notice where the love and support is. So you go to the source of love and support to fill yourself up. Or you imagine that the sunlight, just tell your brain, the sun, when you walk out in the sunlight or when you walk with your bare feet on grass, that replenishes and restores you, that grounds you. Or the ocean with the ionic waves that interrupt our own body's biorhythm or our own body's frequency. We know that being in the forest or being next to the ocean has a calming influence on our cells' frequencies. We know this. Yet we also forget that being around people that trigger a trauma in us has a negative effect, and we need to recharge and replenish afterwards. So please do things to recharge and replenish yourself so that you're not trying to give away love and kindness, but leaving yourself out of the equation. So just telling your brain that there is a way. Reach down right through the earth and imagine your roots going right down to the earth, maybe to your favorite place on the planet. Imagine that your roots go all through the earth and come up in Ubud in Bali, or go through the earth and come up in a volcano in Hawaii, where anything that's toxic, that can go through that root and burn in a volcano, and just start to have an association in your brain that that's where you can send anything painful. You can simply release it and let it go and have it burn, and have that burn till it becomes carbon, till it becomes dust, and only the diamond is left. And when you look at that diamond, it turns into the precious, beautiful gift from that pain. So that might be, that diamond to you might represent. So when you open your eyes, look at that diamond and see, hold it in your hand and go, what was the gift in the what was the blessing, what was the gift in what I went through? So it might be that I'm able, one guy, I heard him speak today, and he wrote a book about his coach abusing him when he was a teenager, and he said, I wrote a book that 500,000 people read that book and came through to me and said, me too. He said, I was able to see this gift was that I could speak up for others and teach them that there's no shame in being a survivor. And that was the gift that came out of the pain for him. So look at that diamond and ask, what is the gift? What is the gift? What is the, not only the lesson, but what is the gift that I can share with others? How can I speak up to help other people to heal when no one spoke up for me when I was going through it? How can I use this and take this pain and learn from it so I can pay it forward and help other people? And as you hold that diamond, imagine that the sun is shining down on it and revealing all these facets that are shining out to other people, so that that diamond is shining light, representing awareness and consciousness and beliefs and healing and insight, and reflecting it out to everyone else. And all you have to do is hold it out there. You don't have to do anything apart from be present and hold that out into the light and release that awareness into the world. And then when you're done, take that diamond, the imaginary diamond, and put it inside of you. So this gift is always inside of you. And put it in the place where the pain used to be. And just feel that beautiful gift, that insight, that learning, going in and filling up where the pain or the blackness or the darkness used to be, so that you've transformed the old beliefs into something new and beautiful. And then when you're ready, put that piece of paper that says Mother Earth, I want you to turn it over and write down everything that you have learned, all of the awareness, all of the consciousness, so that your brain now has locked in how what you went through was a gift. What was the reason why you created it? What was the reason you attracted it? What can you learn from it and share with others? What can you learn from it so that you never go through it again? Because so often people repeat the same pattern, let's say an unhealthy relationship. They repeat it over and over again, but they never go to the source of the problem and resolve that original pain. They just keep repeating the lesson. So what's the original pain? And if it's not yours, I want you to just pull out the blackness. When you put in the diamond, imagine that you're pulling out the blackness or the pain from wherever it is. It might be in your head, it might be in your heart, it might be in the pit of your stomach. Just pull it out and hand it back to Mother Earth. The same way that a rotten apple might be poisonous or toxic if an animal ate it, but when you send it back to the earth can break it down and turn it back into soil or turn it back into nutrients. So anything toxic that's left in your body, I want you to imagine that you are handing it now back to the earth and asking Mother Earth to turn that back into nutrients for someone else. The same way that your pain can become a lesson or an awareness or an awakening for someone else, your pain can energetically go back to the earth because you no longer need it, where that can become an apple tree that grows and feeds and nurtures someone else. And then look and make sure you've let everything go from the original toxic pain. And if you haven't, when you finish this, walk around, don't go straight back in a loop, walk around and then go back to number 1, put a new piece, decide whether you want to burn the old piece of paper, tear it up, or just write cancel on it. But when you're ready to close off that thing and you feel like it's no longer a thing, make sure you do something to acknowledge that it's done, or just write done on it, and then go, right, what's the next thing I want to heal? What's the next thing I'm ready to let go of? And you don't even have to consciously be aware of it. You might just be calling it feeling of blackness. You don't have to analyze it for this to be effective. You can just acknowledge it. It might be feeling yucky, or the sadness, or the how I felt on Sunday, or depression. You can just give it a name, something that represents it without diving into that pain. And then just step through it. Step 1, question, to the first step, step 2, questioning it. Is that always true? Is it true for me? Is it a family belief? Where is it? And go through the different phases so that you are looking at it through new light. You're looking at where it's not true. You're looking at how you can change it, what you can do with it, what you learn from it. And then step again into Mother Earth and imagine going down into the center of the earth, where the healing is, where the nutrients are, where the answers are. And as you go down into the earth, let everything go, pull up the nutrients, pull up the healing. Our brains work really, really well on embedded commands. So if you tell your brain you're letting something go, you are tricking your brain into letting it go. The same way that somebody watches a scary movie and then a house out in the middle of nowhere might seem scary to them. Now, logically, they know it's not true. Logically, they know that little house in the country isn't the same house in America in the scary movie. But we've created a link in our brains that causes a fear reaction to the little hut on the movie, right? So our brains run on stories in the same way. So instead of telling your brain scary stories or stories that don't love and support you, let's tell your brain stories about how you can let go of pain. Hey, thank you, even if you have to imagine pulling it out of your body, looking at it and going, thank you for intending to protect me. Thank you for this fear that I don't even know how it kept me safe. But now it's time to let it go. And let your brain tell you, and let your brain create an imperative where you just imagine letting it go, physically drop it, physically imagine putting it into a volcano. But your brain runs on these stories because our brain makes these connections, and then Google neuropeptides and learn how beliefs actually run our immune system, and learn how beliefs will like placebo. We know placebos work 40% of the time, and yet you're not actually taking any medicine. So this is a placebo that's really effective because it affects your whole belief system, and our belief systems run our unconscious. Our belief systems run our cells in our body. Our belief systems run our immune system. Our belief systems turn on and off the 12 genes that turn on and off cancer, which is why 3 people can have the same disease, and 1 can get sick, 1 can die, and 1 can get well, because of the unconscious beliefs running our cells and how our body responds to trauma. So if we know all of this, if we know that our beliefs can override our biology, why not use this to heal ourselves? So make sure for some of my clients, they've done the Mother Earth thing with pictures of flowers and these beautiful things. For others, they've done something that represents. And, it doesn't have to be Mother Earth. It might just be your favorite place in the world or whatever it is. But I want you to use the timeline technique to step through from where you were to where you want to go. Not just in the traditional NLP way of going, right, a goal, like it might be to have a new car. And so you start with where you are now and you walk through and you imagine that works, but it's for goals. I want you to use NLP timeline and to bring in neural pathways. I want you to bring in the embedded command. I want you to bring in the part where you let go of what's no longer serving you. I want you to bring in imagery where you imagine throwing down or throwing away or releasing anything that's not supporting you, and then pulling in what you need. Now, I also, with some clients, will do another technique, which is using spatial awareness, where they get to the end point and then I say, right, where is the healing that you're looking for? Is it in 20, 30 years' time? Is it in another lifetime? Is it in another dimension? And they'll look around the room and they'll go and stand where it is. Now, I used this technique in Vietnam with a girl who had survived the Khmer Rouge, and she had to hide in a closet in a house and wasn't allowed to speak for 6 months, sort of like the Anne Frank situation. And yet now, 20 years later, she still couldn't swallow, couldn't speak. So when we were doing these exercises, I got her to point to the room and show me where the closet was, where in the room was the closet. And so what we did before she went and stood in that room, we put plants, actual physical plants, in front of the corner of the room that represented the closet. And we drew on a piece of paper, we drew an escape hatch that was Narnia. So what we did, we stood her in the closet, we made a noise, and then she stood to one side, and we got the soldiers who were looking for her. We got her to imagine that the soldiers had gone into the cupboard and right through and gone into Narnia, and then she could close the door. Straight away, her whole body relaxed. Straight away, she started arguing with me and speaking and not even realizing, because her brain was being run by a traumatic memory. Her throat was seized up because of a traumatic memory. She wasn't currently being threatened. She wasn't currently, 20 years later, not able to speak because her life would be in danger. But the beliefs around her life being in danger because she couldn't speak was still running her life. So all we had to do was change the beliefs and change the association, and then her physicality would also change in response because she had different programming. And it literally took less than an hour to change her whole body's reaction because she was running on a different story. The same way that if you change a computer program. Now, there are thousands of people who are doing similar techniques around the world. There are thousands of people, of their clients, that have worked for. But this isn't taught to kids, and it should be. This isn't something that we automatically learn. But we have all the technology to understand why it works. I don't understand why we're not using it. And I don't understand how I remember once hearing a therapist say, I've got someone who has anxiety about going up a ladder, and I'm charging them $300 a week, and they've been seeing me for 2 years. And I was horrified that this therapist thought it was okay to work with someone for 2 years on an issue, and all they were doing was getting this person to go in and talk about their trauma every week for 2 years. And this person bragged about having a repeat business. And how did he reconcile that he wasn't actually helping the person? Because he knew that it wasn't really helping the person. He was saying, it's going to take 2 years. He thought, and he sort of also, this therapist also justified it by saying, well, I care about him and I listen and I spend an hour every week listening to him talk about his pain. And so, that's helping him because I'm showing that I care. But not really. This person wasn't really getting relief. So rather than be disparaging about, try what works for you. Don't trust someone because they have a degree and don't automatically give them more authority over your life. If you're not getting results from techniques, do something else. Find your own answers. Please don't be stuck with a label, as in, I have anxiety, it's going to run the rest of my life, because that's soul crushing. Please know that out there are people who have techniques that work. There are people who've had techniques that have worked for trauma. I remember when I was studying kinesiology, one of my free practice clients was a girl who'd been going for therapy for 20 years for childhood abuse. And we managed to shift 3 things in an hour. And I was a kinesiology student. And because she'd been going for 20 years, $300 a session. And when she first came to me, she was like, well, I've attracted this for a reason. And she was blaming herself, and she found her body revolting because her body had attracted. She was thinking that she attracted this person to her, so she was blaming her body. And she had all these crazy stories that she believed that were making the trauma worse and worse and worse over time. Now, the stories... when I say crazy stories, I mean Crazy in that they're not supportive, they're not healing, they're not helping, and they're not absolute truths. They're her analysing something to death until she's gone off on a tangent. And now she's got all these new stories because she's talked about the trauma over and over again. Why did this happen to me? So her brain keeps looking for more and more reasons of why it happened to her, instead of looking for, how can I heal this? How can I let this go? How can I develop strategies so that this doesn't happen to anyone I love? How can I, develop strategies so that if I'm in this situation, I can get out? Would martial arts, what would help me? Her brain, her therapy sessions, sadly, were not focused on strategies or healing. Her therapy sessions were focused on analysing why it happened. And when you keep going over and over and over the pain and the trauma and why it happened, why did it happen? Who knows? Talking about it incessantly for 20 years about why a bad thing happened is never going to heal it. Why did it happen isn't where the answer lies at all. And it immerses your body in adrenaline, and it triggers the trauma in your cells. It triggers the trauma memory. It triggers the trauma reaction in your cells. Please stop doing it. I understand that there are people out there who want to talk about trauma and they have the best intentions, but it's not the way to heal it. It's just not. Unless it's one thing, 1 minute talking about the trauma, one session talking about the trauma, and then we go, right, now, where would you like to leave it? Would you like to bury it? And look, the very first thing I did with this client was I got her to pull it out of where it was in her body, it was in her stomach. Imagine she was wrapping it up, and I got her to imagine putting it in the dirt where her abuser's coffin was. Obviously, we weren't standing at the actual coffin or the actual gravesite. I got her to imagine pulling his energy out of her body, wrapping it up in something so it couldn't hurt anyone else, and imagine sending it back to the ground. And she said that instantly felt better because she had taken away the association of her body and her brain. Her body felt like his energy was in it. And so we created a new story which helped her change the whole way she saw her body. And that took 10 minutes. And then we started doing all these different techniques to help her disconnect from the pain, disconnect his energy, disconnect why she blamed herself, also start to go how she could forgive herself, start to put all that energy, because if you put all your energy into the problem, it's so much less healing than putting all your energy into the solution. This girl was in her late 20s. She'd never had a job. She lived at home. She'd never had a relationship. And within 2 weeks, she had a job, she had a partner, and she was moving out of home. So it changed her life. And it wasn't even that difficult. But doing the same thing over and over again hadn't worked. So please, if something's not working, please stop doing it. It's like, don't keep going back to the person who broke you, begging them to fix you, because either they broke you on purpose, or they don't know how to fix you, or they don't know how to help you. Don't keep going back to the parent who hates you, looking for their love. They don't have love inside of them. They hate you. So nothing you do is going to make them love you if they don't have love for themselves or they don't have love to give. And especially give up the story of should. They should be sorry. Well, they're not. They should love me. They're my parent. Well, they don't. They should make it right. They won't. They should send that person to jail who raped me. But they didn't. So please let go of should. There often is not justice in this world. Often we are left to do our own healing. And most of the time, when you heal it for yourself, it changes everything. And then you start to go, oh my God, what I learned from that, this is the lesson I was born. This is the lesson I came to the planet to learn. I've had people say to me, and friends and acquaintances and people whose talks I've gone to say to me, that accident was the best thing that ever happened to me. Even though I was smashed up, I learnt that I was self-reliant. I learnt that I could overcome. And there's no better feeling than that. So no matter what happens to you, sitting in that pain isn't even a fraction as wonderful as going, this shitty, horrible, terrible thing happened to me and I did something amazing with it. I helped 5,000 people because of my pain. I went out there and I built wells and I built schools because no one was there for me as a child. I went out there and I taught kids how to look at Malala. Look at all these people who've been through trauma, who've taken it. And the reason they inspire us is because they took pain and they didn't make that their story. Your abuser, your rapist, the person who hurts you or who hates you, they do not deserve to be the story of your life. They deserve to be a footnote. They deserve to be maybe their page 1. But you have to write the rest of your story and choose your own adventure and choose the ending you want and choose what you do with the shit that life hands you. Choose to heal it, please. And then choose to share that amazing awareness and insight with other people, because there are 50 different ways to handle something, 50 different ways to heal it. But just start today to find a way and start to search, not just for the meaning and the label and then stop. Search for how you can turn this into the best thing that ever happened because you use it to change the world. Let the hiccups, let the speed bumps in your life motivate you to go out and change that same pain and trauma for everyone else. And then you'll be like going, wow, because I was abused, like this man who wrote the book, 500,000 people wrote my book and learned how I helped and how I healed the shame and the trauma of my coach raping me. And this guy said, there's 500,000 people out there. I've helped them heal. What a beautiful gift. Thank you.